the emotions of the modern people are not sincere in that they are used in the proper way in regards with rationality. Rationality in regards with instinct, which you can overcome, such as being afraid for the dark, but more so rationality with observing and seeing for yourself, thinking for yourself if you have the capacity. The modern human is a broadcaster of Hollywood emotions. Hollywood propagates symbols used by our ancient people, such as the Hakenkreuz, the swastika, and they use it in a particular way that it will result in having negative emotions to it, emotional reactions which shuts down their rational thinking when they encounter this symbol, or for example the Sieg Heil, the solution of Caesar Adolf Hitler. And when they encounter a person, they immediately have an emotion, but they do not know why, they just have it. They think it's rational to have this emotion and it's eternal, but it is not, it's relative. Some people think when you're on a certain political side, just change the symbols, but if you change the symbol, then the media will attach the same emotional reaction to it eventually. But it's not as simple. These symbols, certain symbols, are so ancient, they are eternal, they grasp a certain essence of our ancestors, a meaning, value deeper than politics, especially current politics. So when they say seek hell, they have this reaction and they want to shut you down because they are afraid or angry. But for what are they angry? They're angry, for example, for the 6 million, which is, to my research, not true at all. But even if so, why should they be angry for the 6 million? Because their emotions are attached to a certain political ideal called secular humanism, rights for everybody, equality, which is the common lowest denominator of sexual reproduction. If you can reproduce, or you cannot reproduce, but at least you have a dick and a vagina, you are human. It does not matter how much IQ you have, how much empathy, mirror neurons, how your behavior tendencies are. It's all about the sexual traits. So they have these reactions for the foreign peoples as an extension of self, but the foreign peoples have been incorporated into an ideal as being self in the other, but not all peoples are equal in regards with empathy and intention. Certain peoples have maybe the same intellectual capacity or similar, but not a creativity, for example, like the Chinese, but tribal instincts remain, as simple as that. So we see ourselves as the lowest common denominator in the other, as altruism, but they do not see it in us, as simple as that. And even if so, altruism is then not sincere, because we feel more pain if you see a person with the same outer appearance and also mental processings having an injury, for example. Then you have more empathy, as research tells us. This altruism today is used as a status, ambition, and ambition means status. I think from Greek it is. And today's ambition is all related to the ideal of secular humanist thoughts, or to feel good hypocrites. So encouraging everybody to live at the expense of living, of well-being. And to have everybody live is to be a slave to the economy. And the economy is ambition, is status as well. It's all about being seen as a good citizen instead of the good Christian today. And people on the left and on the right, they are dualistic. They are defined by Hollywood moralism, and the right is not the right, but it is merely the right wing is defined by left-wing morality. Their good is the good of left-wing morality. They cannot think outside the moral box in which left-wing politics have defined good and evil. But what is good and what is evil, that is The sheep escapes for the lion, and the lion will starve, but the sheep will live on and have offspring, children. Is positive good for the sheep, not good for the lion who will starve with its children, with its little offspring. And vice versa, the lion eats the sheep, it's good for the lion, not good for the sheep, as simple as that. That is good, that's evil. It relates to living and well-being, but we humans have a certain intellectual capacity to think beyond mere instincts and mere impulses. So if you're in a cage, you can always decide to commit suicide, because life is not always worth living in certain conditions. But the modern human wants to live in eternity, the eternal dogs, unwanted even by the Romans, as people used to say, Roman dog. No, these dogs are not even wanted by the Romans, so low that they are. First world countries do not judge themselves as first world as being spiritual, culturally rich, and happiness in regards with living, with being yourself as a people, as a manifestation of your ancestors, of your past. But they see the first world as, first of all, material, living conditions, which is to an extent true, yes, but at the expense of what? The first world is judged upon economic well-being, and the economic well-being is linked to life expectancy. Growth in economy means to them growth in age, but what a cow growing to be 30 years old, exploited in a farm, is that really worth living? People see themselves in pension, living until 90 years, maybe older, in a diaper in a retirement home, and that is their first world ideal. To live as long as you can, but not living as dying with memories, but just living for the sake of living, breathing, nothing more. I ask you a simple question: what is a better life? Compare the life of Alexander the Great. At 21 years old he was king of Greece, from a small little province. He conquered it, united it, and in 10 years, until he was 33, he conquered the then known world, and the then important world, as in regards with trade, culture, empires, and history, making history. And compare that, his life, to a life of a 90-year-old person who sits half his life in front of a television, other half of his life working and being miserable, sometimes on a vacation, but the vacation is just an abstract of the actual culture, because the culture, when it gets absorbed by touristic elements, it becomes insincere. It's all about production, then it's work in itself. Again, around the economy and not about spirituality, because culture is the emotional, intellectual, creative expression of a people, linked to their ideals upon how they look upon history, because history is always a lens, a perspective on how you see things in regards with good and evil and positive, negative. It's all relative. It is absolute in that we exist as a continuation of it, but there's no all observing something to confirm what happened in the past. The scars or the manifestation of how we are and how we have become and how we will become in regards with potential all relates to past interactions, how we have been culled in accordance to the climate shaping us. Certain people survive in accordance to harsh weather, the winter, or do not need to have certain survival skills curled into their gene pool in regards with automatic responses, emotional responses, thinking, intellect, degree of consciousness, because the weather, the climate was easy enough to live in and to survive and to breed. And that's how the European peoples or the Eurasian peoples distinct themselves mostly from sub-Saharan Africans, and the Europeans the most from all other breeds. But this trait is diminishing. We are being culled towards a breed of working mules, specialized little ants with each its specific role, and once he has to do something else, another task, he does not know what to do. Just like he doesn't know why he has these emotions broadcasted through the media and the educational system. It's called territorializing the minds, because what is territorializing the minds is you grow up in a certain geographical location and you have no freedom of thought. You have to interpret things in the way the educational system, the media and the government or God or the state wants it to be, with no encouragement to stand on your own feet, but always to be dependent on the feeding tube of knowledge of them and their understanding. And thus people start to think in accordance to the superego. They parrot the ideals of the superego as if it is their self-substance, and thus a person will go from one country to another country, often called tourists, and they see cultural relativity. They expect, in certain regards, for example, Greece is one big restaurant in regards to tourism. It is often insincere representation of the dances and music in front of the tourists, because it's just about the money and about entertainment, and the tourist doesn't mind because they want them to adapt to their entertainment standards, to their comfort. But the Greeks themselves will dance and sing among themselves with true sincerity, without care for money, without care for entertainment of others for the sake of entertainment, but in respect for ancestors, for example, or the atmosphere, and not in respect of touristic needs. And once the tourist actually experiences cultural relativity, mostly in regards with not so much genetic differences in behavior, such as sub-Saharan African standards, but in regards with idealistic perspective upon what is righteous, what is not righteous, and tribal, serving the tribal instinct, then they are perplexed. They cannot think, why is this? So they go from one country to another country with the mind of the media and the experiences and the symbolism of their country, their consumption and production country and economy. And thus they want to change them in accordance to their standards of living, their standards of seeing the world view. Just think about the people being lied to go to war in name of democracy, because the others also want democracy. They want their standards of living, or they want their standards of being controlled. So wherever they are, that's why geopolitics is always important to think about Ukraine and Russia at the moment. Once Ukraine will let go of Donetsk, for example, it's not just the loss of people with another language, for example, but it's also the loss of minds, of their ideals, their potential of being integrated in their worldview, because both sides are Slavic and many people are Ukrainians speaking Russian. So once you let go of this region, then you let go of the minds, the territory of the minds, because the people want to have them integrated in the system of language and worldview, ideals, righteousness, and perspective upon history, to who you belong and to where you want to grow towards a certain ideal of union and righteousness and health. And once you let go of territory, because once the people go and they belong to a certain territory of the state, like the tourist, they go to another country at the all other end of the world, but they will still represent their government, their ideals. I want democracy, they will say. I want you to have democracy. I want you to have the freedom I have, the freedom of to choose between Pepsi and Coca-Cola, between Burger King and McDonald's. That is their territorializing of the mind. They're being mind raped. And by being mind raped, you're also raped in the womb, because the government controls the wombs of the woman. the alpha male. This first was God, now is the state. So in this way, territorializing the mind is territorializing the body, because the woman will select mates based upon the ideal, for example, today of economy, and the higher ranked the male is in regards with economic standards of living, the he does not have to be healthy in regards with genes and character, because these people are often being suppressed, because they are often have certain rebellious traits, which indicates independency, and the government wants the people to be as dependent as possible. So the woman will go for the sexually attracted for the man who is instinctively uh, independent from the government, but she will eventually settle down because of safety, because of her motherly instinct, with an inferior man, but with a lot of resources, and the resources are owned by the state, and the state only allows them to be shared as long as you subjugate yourself to the standards of the state in regards with going for a university degree, for example. And this is competition, but competition is not free, because you have you have a lot of knowledge and understanding, but the state says to you, no, you are qualified in mind maybe, but you're not qualified in accordance to our uh, needs in regards to diplomas. And so far the ideal of freedom of competition to become as rich as possible as you can, the American dream. But of course you have to have money in the first place to get your university degree, and you have to have the time before, and you have to subjugate yourself to the understanding and perspective of the state itself, so give up your independency of thought to the perspective of the state. And that is called controlled competition, just like left wing and right wing. The right wing is already owned by left wing morality. So again, in regards with symbols, once you change the symbol, the media will just give the same emotional attachments to it, because you're identified as so-called right wing, which is just a dual opposite of left, just like Marxism, capitalism, good and evil. And ancient symbols and new symbols, they want to integrate into their own system of entertainment and of commercials, selling, buying, just like the series, the new American series, The Man in the High Castle. There, the swastika is used as again the common attachment of evil, of course, but also as an entertainment product this time, incorporated in a system of selling and buying. You buy the ideals by watching the series, but you also buy it by paying for the television, paying for the electricity, paying for the actual DVDs to watch it. So it's again buying and consuming. Even colors are integrated in the system of our understanding. If you see, for example, yellow and red, these two colors, many people will, for example, um, link these colors to McDonald's or Burger King, or they see something red and white and they think, ah, Coca-Cola. So it is all integrated in the system of commercials, of entertainment, of consumption, of production, and of abstracts, of unhealthy food, unhealthy hedonism, all about the end in itself, pleasure as the end, and never as a means to grow to somewhere. And colors, of course, represent nation states, and nation states not more anymore as homogeneous peoples with homogeneous ideals, but a lot of ideals, splinter ideals within a common ideal of production and consumption, because they cannot think anymore outside of their moral dual box of good, evil, production, consumption, economy, and poverty, never considering spiritual enrichment, cultural developments in regards with folk dances, folk music, and to have a binding uh, community, because that's what poetry, music, and dances do. It brings the people together. Today it are McDonald's and the cinema bringing people together. That's it. And these colors of flags are now representing the ideal of the nation state. People not anymore united by the shared ideal and shared genes, shared past, but by a shared ideal in which everybody can be, regardless of orientation, regardless of gender, regardless of race, can be assimilated in to become one homogeneous brown mass of indistinguishable people and indistinguishable minds, ideal for the ideal. They are the manifestation of the ideal in itself. There used to be people who fought for ideals and to want to grow, direct people towards the ideal, but they already had the potential for it and to always have a degree of independency. But today people want to be dependent upon the ideal in a search to become the ideal. The ideal of the civilized man. Whenever somebody farts, you just sniff it up and you smile to him because you don't want to hurt his feeling by exposing him or her for what she did. The consequences. For example, if I see shit, I smell shit, I give a repulsed face, and this face says to the other, you are what I reflect you to be. If I smell shit, you are shit. As simple as that. People do not reflect anymore because of civility. They keep their mouth shut, they take a deep breath, they smile, and this smile is already the reflection of cameras, because when the camera was first used, people did not smile. It was because of commercials that people began to smile. And so this smile is also an ideal of our modern age. Meaningless expression to unsheath your teeth and just smile for the sake of smiling. Just like on the unsocial media. Look, I have a good time. But you don't have a good time, it's just for the picture, and out of the picture you don't even know what you're doing. You're just drinking, you're just fucking a potential fucking partner, and that's it. But they're sad and empty from within. And if they're not sad, then they flee themselves by going to others, to go to parties, to go to drugs, to escape themselves because they're so empty in their minds, so empty in their spirituality. And by going to others, they find themselves, or rather, they see the emptiness of another, and by having more empty space, they see growth of pleasure in regards with meaningless talk, meaningless parties, meaningless sex. And back to the reflection. To reflect is to be sincere, and to not reflect is to be civil, to be civilized. And that's also to assimilate people into an ideal, to not have any tribal instinct anymore, like I am here, you are there, this is your ideal, this is your genetic past, this is my idealism, this is my principles, this is my past, these are my people, and I will reflect you as a foreign element. And this can become as an enemy or just as a guest, but this guest is being, to be hospitable, is being exploited in the West. In Dutch, we have the word gastvrijheid, which means being free to the guest, being hospitable. But this word has no meaning anymore because it has been exploited, and the people here are not guests, they are invaders by the government, paid by the government to come here or to stay here, because what is it? They are paid to stay here. They are given welfare, yes? Then they're paid to stay here. There is a certain colonialism. First, the colonialism of the foreign peoples, maybe simpler in mind and genetic potential, and even then they hoped, because it's going to become a great mess soon with civil wars in Europe. They hope to territorialize their minds, to assimilate them into our gene pool and to our ideal, but the contrasts are too big, so it will fail tremendously. And this will reflect in the rise of nationalistic ideals and the reuse of our symbols, of our ancient symbols. But the symbols are still too much attached to Hollywood, so we have to guide people, or at least link them to sources of much older representations and meanings of the values of these symbols, and then see why we use them and keep using them unconsciously. We have to become conscious about the past, about our symbols, and reconquer them from the state and their production and consumption representations. And this will reflect in conflicts, because that is reflection. Reflection is conflict, or exposing. You expose yourself because you can make enemies, but you also expose the other for what he is. Beautiful, ugly, disgusting, nice, good smelling. That's all about reflecting, exposing yourself, exposing the other. And exposing the other is in regards with your own genetic potentials and tendencies and taste, because tastes and tendencies and instincts and unconscious behavior patterns are all curled into our well-being, into our whole system of metabolism in exchange of stuff, stofwisseling as we call it in Dutch. And this has been called in hundreds of thousands of years in identifying objects and subjects, organisms, and relating them to degrees of value, of what is valuable, what is not valuable, because we have taste, because we needed certain nutrition. So the body says, okay, we will develop this certain taste, and you will like it. As simple as that. And this is today exploited by the sugar industry, with the Pepsi, Cola, crispy chips, etc., and chocolate, too much chocolate. This is exploited because it was maybe more rare in nature, in rough nature, without human environments sheltering the products of nature, the resources of nature, and thus there became an abundance, and in this abundance, the state and the corporations saw a means of exploitation, to exploit our taste and our impulsiveness to like it, because everybody likes sugar to a degree. Only the ascetic will enjoy good food, good drinks, good atmosphere, but will also say no eventually. He has to know his health, he has to know to be an example for others, for his offspring, for his children, for the woman he has, his wife, for the family, for the tribe. You have to stand where you are and say no. And when people push you, you reflect them. You reflect yourself in an angry manner, and you say, in this reflective, emotional reflection of your faith, to be angry, to let them know he is not right, he's not in the right position. He is parroting the state, this ideal of the state and the media and the educational system, that all is pleasure. So you should reflect that. And to end, what is Europa but the consciousness and the blood of certain peoples? Europa is a reflection of our genetic capacities, of our tendencies, behavioral tendencies, intellectual capacity, emotional reactions, and emotional usage in regards with expression of in arts and music and dance, and of degree of will and of independency and of thinking. Hence, Europa is reflected not only within geographical borders of Europa, but also outside of Europa, because it's about blood and consciousness. And once this genetic makeup will change, and the idealistic makeup as well, in a bad manner to affect our current genetic makeup already, then this will reflect into a decline of what Europa was. And this is what we shall fight for. And this will reflect by guns and violence. Reflection against civility.